What's up everyone, Master Fox here. Before we get into my video, I want you guys to just take a quick look at my new banner. I know it's not much, but it took a while to actually work on and make, so I'm proud of it. I guess it's better than the bland ice and fire hands before that I got off Google image search. And strangely enough, the Magic Spectres can almost make up the original Star Fox team if you think about it. I mean, alright, there's no hair for Peppy, but I guess the cat can fill in as Crystal, right? I mean, close enough. I know she's a vixen, but come on, guys. I didn't have much to work with here. Anyways, let's get on to the topic for discussion of today, and that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Dying? This is a topic that's often raised, and something you might even hear almost every day from the player base. Things like, I'm going to quit, Synchros are ruining the game, XYZs are ruining the game, and then recently, Pendulums are ruining the game. Then you get those people who say, you don't quit Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Quits you. Both have valid points, but for now we're going to look at the game as a whole. Is it actually dying? To answer this question, a lot of people have pointed to the number of longtime veteran players who have started to grow disenchanted with the game, a handful of whom have decided to leave for good. But does this really mean that the game as a whole is doing poorly? I would say that while this is definitely a bad sign, it doesn't mean that the game is doing poorly overall. Look at the game like Pokemon. In both the card game and the video game, it started off with a massive fan base, which quickly died off going into Generation 2 and beyond. These players didn't like all the new Pokemon and moved on from the game, these so-called Gen 1ers or whatever you may call them. But look at Pokemon today, and it's arguably even bigger than it was ever before back in the 1990s. So to put it succinctly, pro players and even veteran players leaving the game doesn't mean that the game is actually dying. Rather, I think it suggests that the landscape of the game is changing. But of course, that's only one reason for why people think that the game is dying. Another reason, and one that is actually all the more real, is that a lot of card game shops are either closing or no longer offering Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game they support. For one reason or another, they're dropping all of Yu-Gi-Oh! It could be that there aren't enough players that are coming to these local game shops, or that there isn't enough money made from holding Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments. I know that most of the time, at least in the United States, Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments pull in much less money than Magic the Gathering, which makes sense when you see that a lot of shops are dropping Yu-Gi-Oh! To add another day of Magic the Gathering, for example. Now, this is actually strong evidence supporting that the game is in fact declining. But does it definitively prove so? Maybe, but I don't think so, because this is mostly something that's localized to the United States. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually the most popular TCG in the entire world, in fact. Looking at the Asian territories, it's clear that the OCG of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the dominating force in terms of trading card games. Although I do think that Cardfight Vanguard is quickly growing overseas as well, but in Europe, it's harder to say since I know that both are very big. But once again, Magic the Gathering is definitely not as big in Europe as it is in the United States. So generally speaking, we see that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the global dominance over Magic the Gathering. Although Magic the Gathering has dominance in other ways, mainly in the United States as well as the professional trading card game scene. Additionally, Magic the Gathering has gained more preference by card shops as it seems to draw in more money, as I mentioned before. This is completely understandable. All of this together, though, does hint at a waning Yu-Gi-Oh! Scene, but that's not the whole story. Competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Has actually been expanding recently, even entering the Middle East markets, which signals that the game is not stagnating, but it's actually growing. Despite the loss of veteran players and pro players here and there, we're actually gaining more and more newer players daily. The game is seeing fresh faces who aren't turned away at all by changes because they've never experienced the older eras of the game anyways. They're just drawn into the game as a whole. The last point that I want to make is regarding the reorganization of card sets in Bosch. It seems like Konami's strategy with boxes was no longer making them money or not making them enough money, so they changed it. That's obviously business strategy. If something's not making you money or it's making you less money than you could make, you change it. So I'm 99% sure that this strategy worked. They had good imports, good secrets, and not too crazy of rarity bumps combined with better pull ratios set Bosch up as likely the best-selling set since probably Secret Forces or something. All of this together seems to suggest that the game is still climbing, still growing, and still expanding. From what I can tell, the game is nowhere near dying at this point in time. Maybe a lot of veteran players are dying out and leaving the game, and it's possible in a few years the bulk of the player base will be people who don't even know what the GX era was like. But will the game die in the near future? I think not.